Hello and welcome. You're listening to Village Mama, a podcast that inspires us moms to pause in the midst of our busyness, to connect with each other, and to know that we are not alone on this parenting journey. My name is Charlex, and I'm a transformation coach and mom of two, and I create e-courses for busy moms to help guide them on their journey of self-discovery. Each week, I'm sitting down with moms to talk about their journey of parenting and the lessons that they have learned. I want you to consider this your community. I want you to consider us your tribe. Come on in and relax a bit because you are always welcomed in the Village Mama. So hello, Cherene, and welcome. Do you want to share with our listeners a little bit about you?
Well, thanks for having me on your show, Char. So my name's Cherene Francis, and I'm a personal branding specialist. I work with people that are the face of their business. They tend to be small business owners, and they are providing a service. So they might be a wellness coach, a practitioner, a consultant, and I help them with getting more clients and sales and marketing themselves, branding themselves so that they can attract their ideal client. I also do a lot of motivational work with them and coaching around balancing their business and life and just really helping them achieve their full potential as entrepreneurs. A lot of them tend to be women that are juggling, kids and really wanting a lot of flexibility, fun, freedom in their life. And so those are my sweet spot clients that I love working with. Aside from that, I have two daughters, Liberty and Summer, and I'm married to my high school sweetheart. And a lot of my time is either spent with them, evenings and weekends. I'm also a caregiver to my mother, who is experiencing some mental health issues. And so a lot of my own entrepreneurial journey has been around creating a business that supports my life so that I do have the flexibility to be with those that are important to me.
That sounds great. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
And I know that you were just featured in a best-selling book where you talked about your relationship with your mom. And I know that at other events that we've been at, you've been very candid about it. For our listeners who are listening in, who actually don't really know your story, do you want to share a little bit with them about what that's been like?
Absolutely. So the book that I was featured in, I wrote a chapter. The book is Empowering Women to Succeed, and it's volume 4, Leap, and it's available on Amazon. And my chapter is entitled What My Mother Taught Me. So I grew up with a mom that experienced schizophrenia throughout the majority of her life. And I was being parented by her while she was sick. And it was quite difficult because my mom, a lot of the time, the extremities of her hallucinations and the phenomena of what she saw was undetected. So family members, school teachers didn't know the severity of her illness when I was living with her. So there was quite a bit of trauma in my life where her hallucinations were really scary. She would see and hear a lot of paranormal activity. And it was very scary as a young girl wanting to play with her toys, but having fear around the house because her mom constantly was affirming that there were evil spirits and monsters and to watch out and don't play over there. And so there was eventually a time when it came to everyone's knowledge that something was wrong when I went missing from school for a very, very long time and no one could find us. So I ended up going to live with my father eventually, and my mother was sick for a very long time. So, growing up with trauma, there are, two things that can happen. One, you go through a lot of a hard time, getting through releasing a lot of the effects of it, and or you succumb to whatever impact that it does negative on you. And I was blessed to do the first part, whereas I consciously made an effort to build myself up, release all of the fear that was programmed at a young age. And I found myself very early on the journey of personal development and feeling good about myself. I was a very insecure as a young girl, which made sense because of all the fear and insecurity that I grew up with in the first place. And so I started my personal development journey. And what I mean by personal development journey is just simply about expanding your thoughts about yourself, accepting yourself, loving on yourself, developing your self-worth, believing that you could do and have and be anything you want, and that's on the desires of your heart. So I started that journey very early, probably about age 12. I would really immerse myself in inspirational books, in personal development books for teens. And so this story that I write in the chapter is that journey of being, that tender child that was absorbing a lot of really traumatic, toxic experience, and how I managed to learn from the experience and it being a good thing for me and actually being something super powerful for me. Because to be honest, if I didn't have that experience, I wouldn't have been on the track of personal development. I wouldn't be serving and helping so many other people that now come to me to learn how they can release burnout, how they could release feeling insignificant, how they can feel better about themselves and step up into their confidence and their power, a lot of these being women, because when you are a service professional or business owner, you are responsible for your own success. And so you have to be 100% when it comes to confidence if you really want to get the results you desire. So I feel grateful for my mom. And I say that in the book. I'm grateful for the experience. I'm grateful for the learning and the teaching. I feel divinely connected to her here, but also, her soul spark in teaching me the lesson of the mind, because it really was her mind that got a hold of her. And sometimes our own mind gets a hold of us. And so I share this story in the book, and it's really a lifelong lesson for me and for a lot of the women that end up working with me.
Mm-hmm. And I think that sometimes we actually don't talk about these things. There's definitely stigmas around it, and we hide a lot of things. Like in my culture, we always say, you don't air your dirty laundry, right? That's
Yes.
one of the sayings that, a lot of the grandmas and mamas tell us, right?
Yes.
And because of that, we don't seek help, right?
Yeah.
It limits us from actually accessing the help that we need. And so what I love about you is that you actually, you pull down that curtain and you're like, you know what, let's talk about it. Let's not hide it anymore, because it's actually not helpful. When we share our stories, then it actually gives power to healing as opposed to giving power to the story of itself.
Absolutely. And, that's so huge. I find that when we're willing to get vulnerable, when we're willing not to be perfect, that you have a new sense of freedom to just be and evolve. I remember when I was launching my television show, before I even had the idea to launch it, I was doing some internal work with myself, and I realized that I had this thing where I wasn't marking myself as big as I knew I could, because I was always trying to be perfect, like show up perfect on social media, show up perfect in events, or to just be perfect. And I let that go. This whole idea of me being perfect, because it wasn't serving me. And you know what? It really wasn't serving the potential people that I'd be working with, because the expectation now would be, oh, be perfect like me. As soon as I let that go, it was this overwhelming sense of freedom to be myself and freedom to mess up publicly. And I actually went on and said, I am publicly declaring that if I mess up, that's okay. Get ready for it. And it was so freeing. And actually, I think it was 3 days later there, I was praying and I was inspired to go and launch a TV show. And that was amazing. It was a brilliant experience for me. And airing out your dirty laundry, it's good because when you air it out, then you're getting rid of the must and the stink. And yes, other people might smell it for a bit, but guess what? You're airing it out, you're refreshing it. So you can put on a nice gown that smells good. Like, why trap it in the armpits, ladies? Like, let's air it out. We're all human. We all stink sometimes, and that's okay. We're meant to release and detox all levels, mind, body, spirit. And so that's a part of the process. It's kind of like, when we're little kids, we laugh when someone passes gas. But as you get older, it's just like, that's just a body process. So, it's the same thing when it comes to our own personal lives. We all mess up. And those that judge really are judging themselves. That's why, the saying is don't judge. It's not necessarily about judging them. It's about you're perpetuating this idea of judgment even for yourself. And so just let it go. We're not perfect. Yes, you're going to be vulnerable. And yes, just let it go and be yourself. And it's okay to make mistakes.
Totally is. And so I think it's interesting because as we become moms, I think that all of a sudden that brings up a lot of stuff for us. What kind of mom am I going to be? Will I be a good mom? And like, I remember for myself, one of the things that kind of went through my mind back then was, oh, I really hope I don't mess up my kids, like this stuff just comes to you, right?
Yeah.
And then you're having to manage a lot of those thoughts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you are coming from a place of trauma and you are having kids of your own, how do you bridge that transition for yourself?
So there's a saying that says that God lends us our kids for a moment. Our kids are loaned to us. And to a point, I don't want to say that our kids aren't our responsibility, but I do want to say that our kids aren't our responsibility. What do I mean by that? I mean that we are solely meant to be responsible for first taking leadership of ourselves. Leadership is not just about business, but leadership applies in relationships as well, especially as leaders of our home, models for our children. And the best way to be a leader in any framework, especially as a mom, is to first be responsible for yourself and lead yourself. Because your kids are actually not learning just through reading the books or you giving the lessons of saying please and thank you. They are modeling you. There's a part of the brain called the unconscious mind. This is the emotional brain, and it soaks up everything in its environment. It soaks up and models. It actually acts out, plays out. So, when you see family members that have the same expression or the same walk and jive, that's all being soaked up. And so I think a huge part of it is, one, understanding that your children are loaned to you. So that being said, do understand that there's a higher power beyond yourself that has your back. They're going to be fine. And number two, focus on leading yourself. Are you doing the daily habits yourself of resting, taking a break, eating right, being grateful and gracious to yourself, right? Start with that, and they're going to model that. And those are the biggest lessons, right? The biggest lessons of honoring your body, honoring your own life, and everything else will fall into place. Those are, very important foundational things. And I think that if we're nitpicking over the little things, we're really missing the mark. We want to focus and major on major things. We don't want to major on minor things, major on major things. So I let it go. And I also have to remember that I didn't get messed up. I grew up in some stuff and I didn't get messed up. I was fine. I ended up going to daycare Some of us are like, should my kids go to daycare? Should they not? I went to daycare. I turned out just fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we just have to, sometimes we take these stories and we get really creative in our mind and we blow them totally out of proportion. And usually that's not the case. But I think, again, just trust yourself. If I think the worst thing that could ever happen to somebody is for them to inflict harm on themselves, because really in all essence of life, there's nothing ever really stopping us but ourselves. When it comes down to health, being vital and strong, that's our own behavior. We eat and we are what we eat and how we sleep, right? And someone can hurt you in a relationship, but if you love yourself, you will find healing again. So really there is no outside power outside of ourselves and God. And so again, it all stems back to self-leadership, self-care, self-worth. The only person that'll ever mess you up is yourself. So learn how to honor yourself. Your kids will do the same. They will honor themselves, and therefore they will be unstoppable because they will always be in a state of uplifting themselves, learning, overcoming, having resilience. That's not taught in books. That's modeled. Those things are modeled. Those are behaviors that are modeled. So I totally think that we just need to let go and just lead ourselves and trust that they are watching and they are going to do exactly what you do.
True. And so your two little girls, Liberty and Summer, what brings you joy about your girls?
The little things. One, modeling. We were just talking about modeling. I think the first time I slipped on a pair of heels after I had my second, I was walking in them, and then I looked behind me, and there was my 1-year-old Liberty walking on her tippy toes, acting like she had heels on. Or there was a time when I was cleaning out her room, and she has a little purse. When she was 3 years old, she didn't want toys anymore. She wanted a purse. I said, okay. And her purse fell on the floor, and all of a sudden all these business cards fell out. And I was like, Liberty, what are you doing with my business cards? And she's like, I'm starting a business. And I was like, okay. Or last night, I was doing affirmations, and I was affirming my goal, my income goal for the month. And she started saying it with me. And then she's like, no, let's. And then what she did is she doubled my affirmation goal. And I was like, okay, let's go. Let's rise. So that's Liberty. Summer is, they're both night and day. So Liberty's she copies me in terms of my whole entrepreneurial thing. And that makes sense because I really ramped up my business while she was in the womb. Summer is my cuddle bug. So Summer is very nurturing. She loves playing with babies, and she's very sensitive. So when I'm sad or down, I know she feels me. She'll literally come into the room while I'm like crying on my pillow. And I'm like, how did you know I'm crying? I'm trying to hide my tears of vulnerability. And she's just there. And she doesn't really know, like, to say, it's okay. But she just comes and she just sleeps in the room with me. And so it's just seeing them follow suit with, love, self-care, creating, being just like me, that inspires me. And it inspires me that that although I didn't teach them any of those things, again, those things I didn't consciously say, do affirmations, Liberty. She just does them because I do them. Or Summer, like, how do you teach those things of nurturing or of caring or loving on you don't really, you can in a book, but she's learned them from me. And that gives me joy that I'm impacting my own daughters that way, and they're serving me too. So we have a good, I love talking on relationships, and you can have win-win relationships with children. Absolutely. They are there to love on us just as much as we are there to love on them. They shouldn't, it's not an overwhelming thing. It's a joyful, beautiful exchange of energy. And so I just love my kids, and that's what really inspires me about them.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. And so, in your years of parenting, what has been your biggest challenge?
I think that my kids ground me. I actually posted that 2 days ago on Instagram. They ground me. They keep me down to earth in being present. So I'm a success coach. So naturally I'm like, go, 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 let's go, get the goals, go, go. Like, thinking about the future, goal setting. And then in evenings with them, it's just like, okay, let's slow down and read Dora. And and there were actually 2 summers ago, I remember that I would have panic attacks during story time because it was too slow. I was like, okay, let's just get through this storybook. Let's get you to bed because like I need to get ready for a call, or I need to. And I realized that, whoa, Cherene, slow down. Like, this is story time with babies. And I was having full out, like my heart would flutter because I was slowing down. And so I did work around it internally. And what I realized and what I learned from that was you do need to be present. Goal setting is great. Being success driven is awesome, especially if you're a work at home mom type of thing. And being present, taking that time needs to happen. So my biggest challenge truly was to slow down, I do feel like super mom. And sometimes I just need to be mom. Just like, relax, Cherene. Just relax, put your feet up. And so that's probably one of the things that I'm still learning through, and just really embracing the slow reading, the sounding out of the words, stopping to look at those flowers because they're so beautiful. Mommy, let's pick them. And there's more over here, and then we just so totally derail from our path. That's okay. Like, sometimes you just need to stop and smell the roses, they say, right? So they're teaching me again. It's a beautiful exchange of energy. I love my kids. We're both teaching each other in this lifetime. Yeah.
That's great. I was just reading an article, and it was talking about how more parents need to follow their child ego, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as much as we have our parent ego and our adult ego that we're trying to follow, sometimes it's good to just follow that child ego and just go along the path that your child leads you. And the author was talking about how she went for a walk with her 3-year-old, and it's a walk that should have taken 10 minutes, 15 minutes tops.
Yeah.
And an hour and 3 minutes later they get back home.
Yeah.
Right. And it was beautiful because she was basically saying that they stopped, they played with snow. Her daughter was so fascinated about her footprints in the snow that she was making, and then she was really curious about mommy's footprints that she was making in the snow. Yes. And so everything just took so much longer. And she had to fight within herself that parent ego of wanting to say, all right, hurry up, we got to go. And that adult ego of trying to rationalize everything and just like really get into that moment with her child and just say, I'm allowing you to lead us using your child ego in this moment, and it's okay.
I love that. It's so true. And it does add, you do see more beauty in life that way, slowing down and really taking it in. There's this resurgence of pausing and meditation, mindfulness. And sometimes we feel like meditation needs to be you stopping, or prayer needs to be you stopping and sitting down and closing your eyes. But those walks where you're just getting so, involved in the walk is a form of meditation. And so it's so true. I love that. It's really cool.
And so what do you think it means to be a mindful and intentional mom in this day and age?
A mindful and intentional mom. It's constantly being aware of growth, areas of growth and expansion. Like, what does it mean to be a mom, really? You're supporting, you're providing for the child, your emotional support. I really believe in leading by example. For me, I do this thing where when I'm in relationships, and it's not just a mom thing, it's just if I am being triggered or my buttons are being pressed, I really don't do what's called project. I don't put blame on, these kids are being crazy or my husband is ticking me off. When I feel my buttons are being pressed, it's my body giving me a signal that there's an area of growth. And so for me, being an intentional mom or even intentional wife or friend is about being aware of areas of growth. So let's say, for example, I went to the park to read a book and they want me to get up and push them on the swing the entire time. And I don't get to read the book that I brought, right?
It
So
happens.
it happens, right? So in that moment, my buttons are being pressed. So I pause and I stop and I ask myself, what is the lesson that I need to learn from this? What is Liberty doing right now in asking me to spend the full 1 hour at the park with her, pushing her? What is she doing for herself? So what comes up for me is, oh, well, she's wanting to enjoy her time on the swing, enjoy the time with her on the swing. Okay, good. So now the next question is, where am I out of balance in my life where I need to enjoy my own time on the swing? Do I need to do it more or I need to do it less? Whatever pops up for me is more. I need to enjoy my time in fun, exhilarating things just as much. And so I feel being a mom is much more about, again, growth for everyone. It stretches you. For me, it's all about leadership. The more I become fully in love and enthralled in it, is the more that they are feeling the love. I don't really scold my kids. There's never really a question of, are you doing the right thing or a wrong thing? I always look at all of our experiences together as learnings. Like, what am I learning? What are we learning today? How are we growing today? How are we fellowshipping today? For me, being an intentional mom, it is just those moments of self-awareness for me with them. And I think the biggest thing of being a mom or parenting is really about parenting yourself. Like, stop hanging up on, what are you teaching them today? What are you going to give them today? Like, they're getting everything they need just by being. And so I think I have a total different outlook on parenting. I feel like we're always learning. They're learning too. When they're having their hissy fits and getting upset and angry, it's like, Summer, go to your room. Okay, you can punch things, but don't punch the piano. Go to your room and punch the pillow. Because she's in her own triggered moments. She's learning something herself. And we have to be mindful not to block those moments, not to put blame on those moments. Oh, my kids are crazy today. Or, you didn't take your nap, so this is why you're so upset. Like, it's not about that. It's about all of us learning in this exchange of life. And for me, I think that's really what being an intentional mom is about. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If your girls were to happen to come across this recording in a few years from now and they heard your voice, what blessing would you want them to hear from your lips to their ears?
That they are loved and they're more powerful and creative and loved just in who they are, in their own skin. They know I love them, and that still doesn't matter though. It's about, do they love themselves, and knowing that they are love, their essence is love, and bringing that wholeness of God's love and universal love all around the world, all throughout the universe. All of it is all wrapped up inside of them, through every cell in their bone and in their body, and through every breath, that they are love, and feeling that always is for them. They were designed to live in that. And so the biggest lesson for them is, I love them. And it's about teaching self-love at its core. So I'm a Christian, and I think the biggest fall of humanity is that we look for outside. Does mommy love me? Does daddy love me? Do my friends love me? And we don't realize that love actually proceeds from us. It's like we come empty and we look to be filled by other things outside of us when it's inside of us. The love is inside of us. God is within us and without us. And so we're always actually full. We start from full, and then we're overfull with love. We overextend with love. And so if they were to hear this, it would be, you are loved. It's beyond my actions. It's beyond anything what I do or what anyone else does. Love is inside of you, and you should feel that. So you don't look for love if you are loved. Does that make sense? You don't look for love if you are love. You are just love, and you can't help but see love because you are love. Therefore, it doesn't matter what anyone else does outside of there, and it's not in a resentful way. It's just in an observational outlook that you don't even notice when there are other, hateful actions. You just don't see it because you are love. It's quite fascinating phenomena to wrap your head around, but it would just be for them to fully embrace themselves as being love. Yeah.
And I want to thank you for coming on. This is going to be our last question. And so thank you so much, Cherene. And the question is this: if you had any advice for any other moms out there, moms who are trying their best to be filled to overflowing with their own love, loving their family members, loving their kids, loving themselves, what advice do you have for them?
So there's a common idea that being a virtuous mom or a virtuous woman means that you are sacrificing yourself. And it's kind of a thing of honor. I'm sacrificing myself, and this is honorable. I'm putting my needs on the shelf, and this is honorable. And being a good mom means putting my kids first, and this is honorable. But there's a universal saying across all cultural, religious, spiritual philosophies that says to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And therefore, this is really contrary to the common idea that it's honorable to sacrifice yourself. Don't be selfish. You're selfish, right? You're actually not loving your neighbor if you sacrifice yourself in that way. Our job isn't to sacrifice ourselves. If we want to truly serve as mothers, then we need to serve ourselves first. We have to make sure we eat first. We cannot save anybody on empty. You can't give from an empty cup. You have to fill the cup first, right? We have to understand that this is so important. It's so important. And I coach women on this all the time. They'll be frustrated and be short-fused with their kids. They'll even resent their kids. You will resent your kids if you feel like you sacrificed your entire life for them. Well, that's not their problem. You chose that. So when they grow up and you're an empty nester and you look and you're like, oh my goodness, I did nothing but only for them. You can't do that. You have to start from love within and then love without. So within, so without. Life is full of mirrors. What's on the inside happens on the outside. What goes up must come down. It's the law of polarity. That's one of the universal laws. So it's really about understanding that you have to prioritize time for yourself. So I'm not saying you neglect your kids. I'm just saying wake up 1 hour early to fill your cup first. If you know that your children using your kids as alarm clocks is not a good idea. I use my kids as alarm clocks. I don't have an alarm clock. Liberty comes and wakes me up and asks for cereal like 7 o'clock every morning. So I don't have an alarm clock, but I know that after 9 o'clock, they're going to leave me alone and I'm going to have a good hour to myself. So that works for me. For in some households, it doesn't work that way. So maybe you do need to take that hour before you wake up. Or maybe you do need to take that hour or 2 hours before you go to bed. But you have to make sure you prioritize this time. Look at it as a doctor's appointment, an expensive doctor's appointment that if you canceled, you would have to pay to reschedule. You have to look at it that way. Or you're going to be resentful. You're not going to come from a whole loving place. And your kids will, again, model it. And the cycle perpetuates into generations. So think about the legacy that you're leaving when you start with love and proceeding from love within first, and then allowing it to change your outside world.
You've now reached the end of another episode of Village Mama. If you're enjoying it, I would love for you to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes, and also give it a 5-star review on iTunes. It's very much appreciated. Thank you. So until next time, keep treating yourself and others with compassion and grace. Take care.